Wow. Grief is indeed a language of the heart. No one asks to speak, yet many of us have been forced to learn it. But in the middle of the tears, the silence, the questions, there is a gift, and that gift is grace. In this new series we are starting, Grace Through Grief, we are going to walk through the valley of loss, not as people who are broken beyond repair, but as women who are carried by the hand of God. We will unpack the seasons of grief, not as cold stages, but as living experiences where His grace shows up again and again. This is not just about pain. It is about purpose. It is about healing. It is about finding beauty of God's presence, even in the hardest parts of our journeys. Welcome to the Safe Space with Bobo Nene, where we discover that grief does not have the final word, but grace does. It does not begin with tears. It begins with silence, a kind of numb disbelief that wraps itself around your mind like a thick fog. This cannot be happening. Not to me, not to us, not now. That is the voice of denial. The first almost automatic response when life throws us into the depths of unimaginable change. For widows, especially in today's fast-moving world, denial can feel like scrolling through life in slow motion, while everyone else moves at full speed. It is the shock of waking up and reaching out for a phone you know will never ring again, or the silence in the spaces that once overflowed with laughter and plans for the future. But here is where grace enters the story. Denial is not weakness. It is God's built-in cushion for the soul, a quiet shield that whispers, "Not yet." It protects your heart from shattering all at once. What if healing does not begin with acceptance, but with denial covered in grace? What if the first step in surviving loss is allowing yourself the space to breathe, to not have all the answers, and to let God hold what you cannot yet face? In this session, we will gently peel back the layers of grief called denial, not to shame it, but to see grace hidden within it. Denial is not the end of your story. It is the grace-filled pause before the journey of healing begins. For me, denial did not look like silence or withdrawal. It looked like strength, relentless, unyielding strength at all cost. I still remember the weekend after I buried my husband. I was sitting in an exam hall at the University of Stellenbosch Business School, just days after lowering the love of my life into the ground. I walked in that exam hall wearing all black, while my heart tried to pretend nothing had changed. Dutifully, I sat on the seat next to my friend Themba Dlamini, Without hesitation, he looked at me and said, "Bobo, are you sure you want to do this?" I gave him no response. He carried on. "Do you know you are allowed to apply for a special exam later?" He was not ready to see me walk into the class that day. Temba and some of my classmates had been at my husband's funeral the past weekend. I could feel their eyes on me, filled with shock, concern, and discomfort. I did not want their pity. I had made up my mind I was going to carry on, and I had to. I clung to this fragile hope that maybe it was just a horrible dream, a cruel mistake, and any day now, my husband would walk through the door. I kept hearing his voice in my head, clear, calm, encouraging me to follow my educational dreams. After the exams, I threw myself into work. I said yes to every project. I arrived early at the office. I stayed late. I wore busy like a badge of honor. Productivity became my painkiller. At home, I was physically present at times, but emotionally absent. I was wrapped up in doing, in striving, in functioning, anything but feeling. I was trying so hard to be superwoman, not because I was strong, but because I was scared. Looking back now, I see it for what it was. Denial wrapped in duty, in strength, in masking sorrow. A heart shattered, pretending to beat normally. Let us take a moment and reflect. What part of your healing has been delayed because of the need to appear strong? What would it take to allow vulnerability to become part of your healing process? Let us look at denial not as an enemy to be ashamed of, but as a space where grace quickly works. In the context of widowhood, denial is not simply refusing to believe your husband is gone. It is your heart's God-given way of protecting itself from a pain too vast to carry all at once. It is showing up to work with a smile, leading a meeting, cooking dinner, and carrying on with life's demands, all while your soul whispers, "This cannot be real. This cannot be my life." Grace meets us even here in denial. It allows us to function when we would otherwise collapse. It gives us the strength to put one foot in front of the other while our heart slowly catches up to the reality we cannot yet face. But how do you recognize when you are in denial? It is not always easy, especially when you are living inside it. Denial does not always sound like, "This did not happen." Sometimes it looks like living as though nothing has changed. It minimizes the loss, deflects conversations, and keeps you busy enough to avoid the silence where truth waits. Grace does not condemn. It gently reveals the signs so you can begin to name them. You might be in denial if you find yourself avoiding conversations about your husband or quickly changing the subject when his name comes up, speaking about him in the present tense as if he might walk in at any moment, keeping his belongings exactly as he left them, not because you are ready to move forward, but because touching them would force you to face the weight of his absence. Delaying important decision-making like sorting out finances or legal matters of wrapping his estate. Denial in widowed does not often scream. It whispers. It gently convinces you that he is just away on a business trip or at work due to come back soon. And yet, even in this whisper, grace is present, holding you while you are not ready to hold the truth. So when does denial show up? You know, denial does not just show up in the beginning only, but throughout the journey of grief. It shows up in the beginning, yes. This is when everything feels unreal. Denial shields you with numbness, so the world does not crash all at once. Denial also shows up during big decisions. Weeks or months later, when the world pushes you to move forward, denial resurfaces. For example, you might need to sell your house, close accounts, or donating his belongings makes the loss heartbreakingly final. And grace gives you time until you are ready. Denial also shows up, when we face the firsts, the first birthday without him, the first anniversary without him, the first holiday. These moments reopen the wound, and denial sometimes steps back to soften the blow, giving you grace enough to survive those days. Here's what matters the most though. Denial does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. And even more, it means you are being carried by grace, one quiet step at a time. So let's take another moment and reflect. Are there certain parts of your life or memories that you find yourself not thinking about because it feels too painful to accept that your husband is gone? What emotions come up for you when you try to accept your husband's death? Do you feel overwhelmed, angry, or numb? Describe how your emotions show up. You see, when we pause to reflect on what is happening within us during grief, we give ourselves permission to feel, to heal, to see where grace is meeting us. Without reflection, we risk moving through loss on autopilot, surviving but not truly living. Reflecting is not about, relieving pain. It is about naming it, understanding it, and allowing God's hand to gently shape our broken pieces into something whole again. Reflection turns our pain into prayer and our grief into a place where grace can heal us. Reflection is not just vital in grief. It is a powerful spiritual and emotional discipline in every part of our life. For example, on personal growth, reflection is the mirror of the soul. It shows us not only where we have been, but who we are becoming by God's grace. Reflection on our relationships. Without reflection, we repeat cycles. With reflection, we learn, we grow, and love with greater wisdom. Reflection on our purpose. Reflection realigns us with God's original purpose, with God's original design. It quiets the noise of the world so we can hear God's still voice guiding us. He says, "Be still and know that I am with you." Reflecting on daily living, life moves so fast, but reflection slows us down enough to see the fingerprints of God in our ordinary days. Reflection on healing. Reflection is how we honor our journey by giving space for our wounds to speak and for grace to rewrite our story. Thank you for joining me today. I invite you to take time for reflection as part of your healing journey. Be sure to subscribe, share this podcast with someone walking through the journey of widowhood, and join us next time as we continue together. Goodbye, and remember, let grace step in at every stage of your grief journey. Thank you.